Good morning, everyone. I'm Felicia Anastasia, and thank you for joining us today for our latest video and podcast on Mongolia, titled Between Dragon and Bear, the Falcon Flies High. This is part of a series of videos and podcasts produced by Anastasia Photo, a division of AG Global. We're honored today to have the United States Ambassador Michael Klecheski joining us in conversation with Ms. Namuun Battulga. Ambassador Klecheski is a member of the Senior Foreign Service and the U.S. Ambassador to Mongolia. Prior to Mongolia, Ambassador Klecheski has previously been on assignment in Kazakhstan, Russia, Iraq, Switzerland, and Poland. Ms. Namuun Battulga is an entrepreneur and founder of the Namuun Children Foundation, a philanthropic organization focused on improving the health, welfare, and education of children from underprivileged backgrounds. Ms. Battulga also serves as the chair of the Young Entrepreneurs Council. She is the first child of the current president of Mongolia, President Battulga. Again, welcome everyone, and I'll start things off with the first question, and the ambassador and Ms. Namuun can continue from there. It's been an incredibly difficult period worldwide due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but Mongolia has seemed to fare better than most countries during this tragic time. What policy decisions and other factors have allowed Mongolia to succeed in their efforts to control the virus? Ms. Namuun?
We were successful in containing the COVID-19 is because we have closed the borders in February this year. And as of today morning, we have 306 COVID imported cases, those that we brought into Mongolia through a chartered plane.
I mean, first of all, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be here. And I want to praise Mongolia because it's done a very good job. The fact that there's been no community transmission cases is very admirable, I must say. So Namuun, whom I consider a good friend, is right about some of the factors she was talking about. And there's a whole host of factors, the regulations being one of them. What I kind of wanted to highlight, because it really strikes me, is that Mongolia has been extremely transparent with its public about what it's been doing, what the situation is. Every day, every weekday at least, at 11 a.m. local time, the Ministry of Health and others do a press conference. And it is widely watched. I think Namuun will agree with me on this. Widely watched by everyone, where they lay out what's the situation, how many new cases, what they're doing. And I think that's a real tribute. I think transparency with your public is something that means an awful lot. And I really do give them a lot of credit for doing that. So kudos, I will say. It does make, it makes for a different kind of psychology here when you know that there's no community transmission. Namuun, I wanted to ask you, your foundation has done a lot to combat the potential of COVID, but also the social impacts that COVID has had, because after all, there is social impact, even when there's no community transmission. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about what the Namuun Foundation is doing in that regard?
So Namuun Children Foundation was first founded in 2008, right after my graduation from Singapore. And I thought that I have to contribute what I learned overseas to also help the children by teaching them English and also building libraries and providing them with clothing, food, and books as well. And then I have continued that foundation since today. And the biggest, one of our biggest projects that we did was COVID-19 relief packages that we sent out to 13,000 households. So the U.S. Embassy has a great number of programs that supports arts and culture, social enterprise programs in Mongolia. I also know that you are a great supporter of arts and other enterprises related programs. Could you please elaborate the program to our audience?
Sure, it's my pleasure. First of all, I'd say that the arts scene here, the culture scene here is incredibly lively and interesting. And it's been fascinating for an American to see it. So the U.S. Embassy really and the U.S. government has done a lot to support that scene and to bring the arts scene here closer to the international scene in terms of, just linking artists, institutions up. And we consider that very important. One of the interesting institutions is the Arts Council of Mongolia. The Arts Council was created it's kind of in the aftermath of the breakup of the Soviet Union and Mongolia's decision really to become a democratic country after the fall of the Soviet Union and the system. So the Arts Council has been a fantastic instrument for us through which we do a lot of programming. And we've supported all kinds of cultural activities, supporting cultural heritage activities, which we greatly value. In COVID obviously has had an impact. In the old days, pre-COVID days, we were able to bring over a number of cultural groups, as State Department people do all over the world. Obviously, that's now not possible, but we've done a lot to try to compensate for that. One of the things, for instance, that we've done is we have the Arts from Home program, which is to say Mongolian and American, including embassy artists, if I can call that, musicians doing collaborative work, which I think is very cool, and it's gotten a lot of good reaction from the public here. So that's just one of many examples. And then on the social entrepreneurship side, again, COVID has been a real challenge. I think it's a challenge all over the world, obviously here as well. So one of the things that I guess I would single out is, as in every country, small and medium enterprises are very important to the Mongolian economy. Even before COVID, we had tried to find ways to support SMEs. USAID is becoming increasingly active in Mongolia, and we're very, very happy about that. But even before COVID, USAID created a program which goes by the acronym BEST, and that program really is meant to support small and medium enterprises. Obviously, COVID creates challenges for those kinds of enterprises. So we were able actually to adjust the program to help SMEs cope with the challenges that are very real in this COVID period. And that's been very gratifying for us. I've gotten very good feedback. And it's something that we're doing not only here in the capital, but throughout the country. And that's very encouraging. I understand, Namuun, not that I've ever actually seen your art, but I know that you're an artist in your own right. Maybe you can just tell us a little bit about your art and also your perspective on the art scene here.
Yes, I haven't shown my art to you. I will invite you to my gallery very soon. Basically, our whole family is somehow loves to paint, and I've shown some of my family paintings to Felicia, and I think she was quite surprised by our family's paintings. And I think we are definitely influenced by our parents, because my father and both my parents, they used to paint when we were young, and I think seeing them sketch portraits and do paintings and designs, I think inspired all of us. And that's how we are still holding on to that free time, especially during COVID-19. We found each other painting on the weekend. So yeah, it was good. How well do the Americans know about Mongolia today, and how is it changing over the years?
I mean, it's been very gratifying to be here at a time when more and more Americans are learning about Mongolia, and vice versa, I must say. So these are things that are a little hard to quantify, obviously, but one of the ways that we've tried to quantify it is to see how many American tourists have been coming to Mongolia. And the numbers have been growing pretty steadily over the last 5 years. We've seen something like a 5% rise in the number of tourists. And of course, that's a very vague statistic, but Mongolia is a fascinating country for American tourists. Both its nature and its culture is something that I think appeals to a lot of Americans. It's important also to stress that more and more Mongolians are going to the US. Again, it's a little hard to quantify that, but what we see, for instance, is that the number of Mongolian applicants for US visas has also been going up something around 3% a year rise. Doesn't mean that they all go immediately to the States when they get a visa, but it does indicate a growing linkage, and we think that's very important. More and more Mongolians are studying in the United States, and I've met some very impressive alumni of American universities, so that's been very heartening. I've found, maybe because I'm fascinated by it, but more and more American scholarship about Mongolia. And this is something very, very interesting as well. And then finally, I'm glad you mentioned the WHO. So I just want to stress for those in the audience who might not know, this is not the WHO, the WHO of the old days. This is the WHO, which is spelled HU. It's a Mongolian hard rock band, but it's a band that's performing very successfully throughout the world. They did a European swing not long ago, but before that, they did an American swing. Something like 50 concerts in the United States. I met them. I was very honored to do that, but I was also very happy that my own son went to a WHO concert in Brooklyn, New York, not far from the gallery. And that was really neat. He really loved it. He said it was sold out. It's nice to see that something like that is having an impact on people's awareness in the United States of Mongolia. What makes it even more, I guess you'd say, significant is that the WHO is not just any kind of hard rock band. It's a band that, in fact, uses Mongolian instruments and throat singing, which I think is quite a brilliant thing to do. But it again shows one of the really strong aspects of Mongolian and unique aspects of Mongolian culture.
They sing in Mongolian. They don't say a single word of English during their concert.
As a matter of fact, you're right. That's exactly correct.
They were supposed to play in Coachella this year, but because of the COVID-19, it was postponed. The WHO, coming back to WHO, as we're very proud of them, they started a whole new genre called Hunnu rock. Because why we're very proud of them is because they're using all of our traditional musical instruments, including marunghor, including homi, and just everything, right? And something I invite all of you to listen after our podcast. I'll send you the link.
It's a nice way to introduce. It's very popular. It's done very well in the United States and really internationally. But it really is an introduction to some of the more unique and wonderful aspects of Mongolian culture.
Sports is another expression of culture, and Mongolia has a strong, long-standing sporting tradition. Have you had any opportunity to see any of Mongolian traditional sports?
Absolutely. It's hard to live here and not see Mongolian traditional sports. And that sort of the peak, as you, Namuun, know, but maybe not everyone of our audience does, the peak in terms of the traditional sports is the annual Nadam holiday in the summer. So at that holiday, there are three main sports that are featured and have been not only for decades, but literally for centuries. It's a tradition with a great length of history to it. So there's wrestling, and it's the Mongolian form of wrestling. It's not like something that all Americans, for instance, know. It's archery and it's horse racing. And again, even the horse racing isn't the kind that goes around in a circle. They ride for many kilometers, sometimes from 12 to 20 kilometers. I guess, Namuun, you know better than I do on that. But I've watched that. It's been really fascinating to watch. And it really is another expression, not only in this case of culture and sports, but I would say even of Mongolian history. But Mongolia has, particularly in one sport, become more and more prominent, and that is 3-on-3 basketball. I had the pleasure, in fact, of watching. I guess it was the Youth World Cup last year of 3-on-3, right in the central square of Ulaanbaatar, and I was happy. It just happened that both the men and women's team from the United States won gold. So it's obviously very satisfying to me. But Mongolia is doing extremely well in the 3-on-3 realm, and it's really neat to see. Then it's also rising in some of the other sports, soccer being one. It's making its way up in the ranks of Asian soccer. So it's nice to see that too. I haven't had a chance yet to watch, except on TV, Mongolian soccer. But the stadium is right nearby, and I look forward to doing that pretty soon. But yeah, it's a great opportunity to see some unique sports, but also to watch sports that I'm very familiar with. 3-on-3 basketball is definitely different than the NBA, but it's really fun to watch. What's your favorite, Namuun? I'm curious. And who are your stars?
Regarding the traditional sports, I think definitely archery, horse racing. I can ride a horse, but horse racing is a bit tough for me. So, however, I think Mongolia is very big in Japan. I'm sure you have heard sumo wrestling. I know it's a Japanese wrestling sport, but the high-ranking, the top champions are all Mongolian wrestlers. So I think Mongolians have a strong wrestling background and genes, I guess, that we are also closely catching up on the Olympics, judo, also shooting as well. So I think it's linked to our traditional sports of archery, that we are also climbing up on the shooting Olympics as well. We have our great shooters, silver medalists from Gundugma and Anoder.
Maybe I can just add here that the three traditional sports that I was talking about, that we were talking about earlier, are all individual sports. And there's always kind of been this stereotype, I guess you'd say, that Mongolians aren't that great at team sports. So now it's clear that that is changing, that 3-on-3 sports is definitely, 3-on-3 basketball is definitely a team sport. They have to play in coordination. It's just an interesting phenomenon to see, and I think it's kind of cool, actually, to tell you the truth. So Namuun, you started talking about sports figures, but I was wondering, in terms of Mongolian artists, who are the people that you think are noteworthy, and beyond that, sort of what is it about Mongolian culture and tradition that you find unique?
We have music, dance, clothing with a lot of ornaments, traditional ornaments, crafts and literature. Mongolian literature, music forms have traditionally celebrated Mongolians' animals and our land views and mountains and blue sky. They usually show the subjects from traditional nomadic life in the countryside and focuses many different activities and subjects in the painting. There's no perspective in the paintings, regardless of the distance, or everything is shown in the same proportion on one big painting. That is our famous painting called One Day in Mongolia. It's from the 1911 to 1912 by Shadov, the painter Shadov. So if you see that painting, you will see the long strokes, just like our Mongolian script, traditional script. It's painted in a very long strokes and artistic styles. I also want to mention about the Mongolian original Uyghur script or traditional script. The traditional Mongolian script is written vertically from top to down, right across the page, and the letters are formed from 6 main strokes. Mongolian calligraphy is the technique of handwriting. That is, I think, maybe you can say it might look a bit Arabic, but Arabic script is straight, whereas ours is top to down. But if you look closely, it's the techniques are totally different. As for our music culture, traditional homi, the throat singing, produces diversified harmony of multiple voice parts. I mean, I can't personally do it, but I'm sure Mr. Klecheski has learned some homi. And our traditionally well-known instrument, merenchor, known as the horsehead fiddle, is a bowed-stringed instrument. It has two strings, but it makes very unique and beautiful sound. During the 14th century, Great Mongolian Empire had their very own national anthem named Ancient Splendid, most respected and ceremonial song of major celebrations, which is played by the horsehead fiddle. If you like to hear our traditional music, you should definitely check out the Mongolian Battulga, the paired on Netflix series Marco Polo with his original music with his merenchor. Also Briat Mongolian singer Namgar. So there's a lot of Mongolian traditional music played in a lot of American movie. When we hear it watching on Netflix or anywhere, we would recognize it. But I think for everyone in the other world, I think they would just hear that melody and it's quite very unique. So Mr. Klecheski, speaking of artists performing in the USA earlier, the relationship between the United States and Mongolia seems to be better than ever. And why is this?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And I feel very lucky to be ambassador at a time when the relationship is getting better, because it absolutely is. And I think that kind of sharing of values is actually very important and means a lot. It certainly does to me. And I have to say, Mongolia just had its election about 2 months ago, let's say something like that. And we were all struck by how much people were interested in voting, in speaking out and participating. It was really a very encouraging indicator of just how much people value democracy in this country. So there's other indicators of that, and other indicators that also suggest why Mongolia is important for the United States. Of course, geostrategic considerations. Mongolia is set between two large neighbors that don't necessarily share its democratic values. But it's also a question of human rights issues, which are discussed in a lively way. Social media in this country is very vibrant. I think those of us who are here know this, and is not censored in any way. So that's a very encouraging thing too. So I think those kind of qualities are a very firm basis for the strong relationship between our countries. And from the U.S. point of view, we really want to support Mongolia as a sovereign, independent country. And this is important at this moment and really throughout Mongolia's recent history, at least, and even more, I would say.
We are very happy that it's getting better, and hopefully we can definitely, with you here today, we can definitely make greater steps ahead on our relationship as well. 1 year ago, my father, the President Battulga of Mongolia, went to Washington, D.C. to meet the President Trump of the United States. He was welcomed very well, and at that meeting, they announced the U.S.-Mongolian strategic partnership. What is the strategic partnership, and what have the results been?
Yeah, it was exciting to travel with your father and his delegation to the U.S. It's a nice opportunity for an ambassador to be able to do that. And it did lead to some very concrete and positive results. So the strategic partnership was an agreement to really upgrade the relationship. Strategic partnerships are important in their own right, but they become even more important when they lead to more programming, more concrete cooperation. And in the last year, that's really happened in ways that I find very encouraging. And that keeps, by the way, it keeps our embassy extremely busy and motivated. So, for instance, USAID, which was working here somewhat in the past, quite a lot in the past, is returning to Mongolia in a significant way. We're very happy about that. They do a lot of programming on a whole range of issues, as USAID does everywhere. Really, from COVID support, which USAID did, to democracy support, which is something very important, to supporting the free market, just to give you a few examples of what's been positive. So we're really very, very happy with this. And I know that the commitment from the US remains very strong. So we're looking forward to even more cooperation in the future. But the strategic partnership, as I say, was much more than just rhetorical. It can sometimes be just rhetorical, a piece of paper that's been signed by both countries, but throughout the world. But in this case, it had is having very concrete impact. One of the exciting ones, for example, is a childhood protection compact. I think that's relevant to your foundation. And that is a multi-year program to support Mongolia's efforts to protect its children from trafficking, from other really reprehensible phenomena. And we've done these kind of childhood compacts. In fact, I have been a witness to this in other countries. It's really been very, very positive. As always, this is a two-way street, so we're learning a great deal from Mongolia too, but we're proud to be able to share our own experiences, our own best practices as well. So it's been exciting, I have to say. It's a nice thing for an embassy and an ambassador to be here at a positive time, and that's certainly the case.
As you mentioned, both countries share free and open market economies. How would you describe the economical relationship between our country?
When an ambassador testifies, or a hoping ambassador testifies before the U.S. Senate, as it has to do in order to seek confirmation from the Senate, they tend to kind of prioritize what are their main goals. And I definitely made the economic and commercial relationship at the top of my list of priorities. So the relationship is improving in the economic realm. It's actually statistically improving in ways that are important. More exports of American products to Mongolia, and Mongolia also is increasing its exports to the United States. So that's a very favorable phenomenon. But there's a lot of room for improvement, I have to say. We're still at a relatively low level compared to what we could, I think, accomplish. Admittedly, geography complicates things somewhat, but geography isn't always a hindrance in this day and age. So one of the factors that makes it a little more complicated, I would say, for American companies, American private sector, to have a bigger role here in Mongolia is an investment climate that has some challenges. So we have also been doing a lot of programming, and this predates the strategic partnership, but continues in the strategic partnership period, to support things like good governance, things like how to combat corruption, issues that American business people tell us are still a challenge here in Mongolia, and make it harder for American companies to function. But absolutely, the statistics are positive. And we look forward to continuing that. It's important to both countries, and I think it's in the mutual interest of both countries.
It's also important to mention that the proposed Mongolian Third Neighbor Trade Act, which seeks to promote Mongolia-US trade by authorizing duty-free treatment for certain imported products, such as cashmere and textile materials. Because I think Mongolia is a very proud country of our quality cashmere that supports a lot of households all over the countryside, especially women who are the head household breadwinner of the family. So it keeps them with a job, and it also helps Mongolia economically. And so this is something I'm hoping that it will be a successful story soon.
We spoke a little bit earlier about entrepreneurship, startup economy, things like that. Namuun, I wanted to ask you about that, how your economy is diversifying, because it has to. What are the trends in that area?
So in Mongolia, I think the population is relatively young. More than 1.5 million people are aged between 15 to 34. And through supporting our younger generation with entrepreneurship, startup, and innovation opportunities, we can decrease the unemployment rate, increase the economical benefit, and build a strong ecosystem for startups and entrepreneurs. So if the audience wants to find partner business opportunities to help the startups or even mentor Mongolian startups, they're more than welcome to get in connection with us. And I think a lot of Mongolian startups could be successful if the know-hows are shared between more developed and successful startup countries as well. I would like to mention a few Mongolian startups that are making headway internationally. In 2018, 4 Mongolian startup companies, Erxis, Lenderman, iHotel.com, Alchemist Technology were included in the top 100 Asian startups. The successful startups in Mongolia we have a lot of names. Apart from those that I mentioned, we have Tomya EdTech, Nova Academy, MimeChat, CallPro, Shopee.mn, and many more. I would also like to thank the U.S. Embassy and Mr. Klecheski for accepting our guest speaker invitation on our recent event, Becoming an Entrepreneur in the U.S. It was very well organized, and our members learned a lot. They had a lot of amazing questions, and it was full house. So thank you again for the great collaboration.
Well, we're very happy to collaborate. It's our job, but it's also our pleasure to bring together both countries. It's in the interest of the United States, and we think it's in the interest of Mongolia too. I've been very impressed with the young people in Mongolia. There's some excellent schools here, and for the American ambassador, it's always gratifying when so many people have studied in the United States in some very, very prominent schools. And many of them come back here and do great things. One of the things I'd mention, because it might be of interest, is that we have an alumni association. Our embassies throughout the world have these alumni associations of people who have been to the States for whatever reason, mostly to study. But the one here is considered one of the most lively, vibrant, effective, doing all kinds of great things, including social entrepreneurship and similar projects. So it's been really neat to see the people who have been in the United States coming back here and doing good things and organizing. And we keep in touch with them very closely. It's something I think we get a lot of pride out of it, actually.
Thank you. Mr. Klecheski, it's been almost 2 years since you have been appointed here in Mongolia. I mean, it's always my pleasure to see you, meet with you, have a great talk. Have you had a chance to travel throughout Mongolia? And what were your impressions and highlights, if you want to tell the audience here today? And how do you spend your free time in the capital city, especially during COVID-19?
Yeah, it's been a wonderful experience being here. I have really not traveled to every province of Mongolia. This is a vast country, and when you begin to travel, you realize just how big it is. But it's been really fantastic to see the different parts of the country. They vary widely. I mean, this is quite remarkable. You go from desert to mountains to forests. And I have been to the Gobi Desert, which is absolutely one of the most memorable experiences of my life. And in that regard, I'd say one of the most memorable experiences in the Gobi Desert was seeing the so-called flaming cliffs. These are a geological structure which is both beautiful in terms of its color and its composition, but also the place where a lot of dinosaur fossils have been found. A lot of paleontological work has been done, including by American paleontologists to this day. And we're really excited by that, but it's also something that's truly to be seen. And from there, we went to, my family and I went to some amazing sand dunes. Again, part of the diversity of this country, which is remarkable. But just this last couple of weeks, I've been on official travel to the west of the country. And what really struck me, I think, was the fact that we would travel across vast swaths of the country, and it seems like every few minutes almost, there would be a different topography. We went from beautiful lakes to something resembling the Gobi, to mountains, to forests, all in the span of maybe 2 hours. And that was really something to behold. And when you drive past these things, in some parts of the country at least, you see these ancient burial mounds from a long, long time ago. There's still some debate about exactly when these were created, but it's a reminder of the history of Mongolia. We've had a lot of guests. Unfortunately, this year the guests haven't been able to come because of COVID, but we've had a lot of guests, and they all want to come back, including my kids who really were excited by this place. The fact of the matter is, though, that I'm a city boy. I'm from New York City, and I really like walking around Ulaanbaatar. So I walk around as much as I can. There's a fair amount to see here. There's a lot of art to see. There's some museums that I enjoy visiting, and that's a nice aspect of being in Mongolia that people I don't think about. They rightly look at the nature, the amazing wildlife, but Ulaanbaatar definitely is a place that I enjoy walking around in. So it's been fun.
I mean, so when you walk around the capital city, right, you notice how much of an American culture is influencing the Mongolian youth. Do you see a lot of skateboarders, the kids, the young people dressed in American style of clothing, especially like hip hop, or did you happen to see that?
Not only did I happen to see that, but just in the last couple of weeks, there was a skateboarding event right near my home, as a matter of fact. And there were quite a few skateboarders there, but it's not something unique to an event. Whenever I go to some of the central squares of Ulaanbaatar, I see skateboarders galore and people on bicycles doing tricks. But the culture is much more than just that. I mean, that's kind of a superficial but important and interesting reflection of that. But I think things like valuing their freedoms is something that I think we share, and that's really neat. And it's another part, in my opinion, another part of the culture. And then the high-tech creativity, entrepreneurship, again, is something that that binds us together in a nice way. But funny you should mention the skateboarders, because that's exactly what I saw in very recent past, and it was neat to see it. Well, so I've been telling you how much I love this country and how fascinating I find it to be, but I'd love to hear your recommendations for the audience for this podcast, among others, which I assume will be Americans and many others. What do you recommend to folks to focus on when they come here?
I think you should skip the capital city, straight to the countryside to have the nomadic life experience first. Like just go into a nomadic family, knocking on their door and staying overnight. And I think Mongolia is very well respected and well known for how the countryside people are very welcoming. They'll cook for you, let you sleep on their bed, and just welcome you and tell you about their country or show you the traditions. After that, you should go see one of few of my highlights would be the Huskut Lake. It is more than 2 million years old, and it contains 1% of all the fresh water in the world. So Hardaring is a must visit. It's an ancient capital city of Mongolian Empire and was the cosmopolitan city that became first trade center linking Asia and Europe. Also, make sure to visit Gobi Desert, as Mr. Klecheski mentioned earlier. It's where you will hear the singing sand dunes, as they say, and the river flowing around the dunes. Last but not least, visit Hoster National Park, which is the home to the world's only naturally surviving wild horses. And after the countryside visit, I think you should visit the capital city, Ulaanbaatar city, to see and compare how different each regions are and how different are the people in the city are. Overall, Mongolians are very welcoming, especially if you're in the countryside, as I mentioned earlier. So I think don't be afraid. Don't think you're bothering people. I mean, just they would love to see a new face in the countryside and be friends with you and welcome you and try the Mongolian food, as in like the milk tea with dumpling. And it's called banstete, which is a common combination, but you won't regret it once you try. It's definitely a must try. Also, you can play games, traditional games with knuckle bones and original. It's the original Mongolian games, and it's a sheep's knuckle bone. It might sound scary, but when you see it, it just looks like a little toy. Yeah, but this is what you will see in a traditional family, and I think it's important that everyone visiting Mongolia to have this traditional experience, once in a lifetime experience.
In Namuun, I want to congratulate you on your beautiful Adele. That Adele is the Mongolian main costume outfit, and it comes with a special kind of button that only Mongolians seem to have. I don't know if you can show that there, but it's a really nice thing. But it's beautiful, yeah. And I have some as well, although I didn't wear it today. Maybe I should have, but it's a fun country, and from the point of view of me, it's great that the relationship is getting quickly and significantly better and better. It's always been good throughout our sort of years of diplomatic relations, which is over 30 years now. But it's nice to see that in this period, as Mongolia itself is evolving in a very positive way, that our relationship is going so well, and in very concrete and substantive ways.